Hey there, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of the Build Your Copywriting Business podcast. Hey there, Kate.
Hello, hello.
Hello. Okay, guys. Today we are going to cover a topic that that comes up a lot in our student-only Facebook group. Comes up, frankly, it comes up a lot for everyone.
Life.
Yes, comes up in life. Whenever you're doing anything outside of your comfort zone, this is definitely one of those things that will creep up for you. And of course, if you read the title of the episode, we're talking about imposter syndrome. So Kate, what is imposter syndrome, to start out, in case people are unfamiliar with it?
Yes, it's that feeling you get when you're doing something that, quite frankly, you probably know how to do, but you just feel like you're not actually qualified to be doing it. You feel like it's that feeling of like everyone else in the room knows what's going on, but you don't, and you don't belong there. That's the general vibes you get from it.
Yeah, you're working with a client, you're afraid the client's going to find out that you're a fraud, even though objectively you're not, but it's still the feeling that keeps coming up for you. And so because it's so common, Kate and I thought we would put together an episode in which we would give you 3 really powerful tips to deal with it and to maybe not immediately, but eventually with practice, overcome it. So Kate, tip number 1.
Separating your feelings from the facts, I think, is a good place to start, which is real hard to do sometimes. But so what I would recommend and what I sometimes do is making a list of like, what are you actually feeling? What are the facts behind it? I am a copywriter. Start by writing that. Start by saying that to your friends, family. But really objectively looking at whatever given situation you're in and saying, okay, this happened, for example, with a client. You maybe got some feedback on some copy and maybe it wasn't the best, maybe it wasn't the worst, but it was some changes you had to make. Okay, this was good copy. I nailed the brief and what they asked for. There were some changes to what they wanted in the brief. Next time, here's what I can do to maybe prevent that from happening in the process. Maybe you can't. Sometimes it just inevitably clients have changed their minds. We're people. We change our minds. And go through it like that to say, okay, I'm going to make these edits and I know how to do this, and I remind yourself of what you know as a copywriter and all your skills that you do have as a copywriter, and really try to separate that feeling of feeling inadequate and, oh my gosh, I didn't knock it out of the park. I failed. The client hates me. The client doesn't like my work, versus client probably was just fine with your work. And if they didn't say they hated your work, then don't put that idea into your head. Don't give your brain information that isn't real, that you're making up. So take what you actually got. If you got an email from the client, line by line, read those words. And if don't read into those words to say, well, they said, this was fine. Oh, does that mean it was actually fine? Or does that mean it was fine as in like, okay. Don't let your brain go there as much as possible.
Yeah. Well, and this kind of goes back to that idea of don't believe everything you think. I think a lot of us are accustomed to assuming that because we think something, it's true. But the vast majority of things that we think are not actual facts. They are interpretations, our interpretations. And often those interpretations are based on our fears. So if to your example, if you get something back from a client, what your brain kicks up is, I'm not good enough. Oh, they don't think I'm any good. When there's nothing in objective reality. Yes, you're feeling that. Those are your emotions there. But again, that's an interpretation. That's not the objective reality. The objective reality, and again, to Kate's point too, you can't read into anything. You can't make any assumptions. You're not a psychic. You don't know what's actually going on in their head. All you have is the actual words that they sent. And especially in an email, you don't even have the tone that they were sent with. So read the actual words that are sent, because that is the only objective truth that you have. And the idea of like, well, I don't know enough. Well, first of all, that's definitely an interpretation, because what is enough? There is no,
there's never enough.
There's never enough.
There's always more to learn.
Exactly. Or we should say, at least there's never, you're never going to attain perfection. If you're going to wait for perfection to take action, you're going to be waiting a really, really long time. But it's all interpretations. What you can do instead of, I don't know enough, is to go back and say, okay, well, what is the objective truth here? What do I know? Okay, well, this is the work that I've practiced. This is what I've learned how to write. I know these foundational principles of copywriting. I practiced it in these ways. Separate the emotions and the interpretation from the actual facts. And I will tell you too, that if what you are examining kicks up any negative emotions, there's a very good chance that they're not actual facts. Facts tend to be non-emotional.
It's pretty boring.
It's our interpretation, things that we bring into it that make, well, I've learned this, I've learned this, I've learned this, but I haven't learned this. And that means that I'm not good enough to write. Okay. So it's that interpretation that is bringing up the emotions. And that's when you're going to start to veer off the course. So again, emotions, facts, keep them separate. Kate, what's point?
If there is something you haven't learned, look into that then, versus saying like, I'm no good because I don't know this. Okay, this is an opportunity to fill this gap in my knowledge. It doesn't mean you're not good enough by any means. Look at it as an opportunity.
That's a great
Another
point.
quick example I'll give of that is I often feel like I'm not doing enough. And when I actually sit down and I write out like, here are my clients, here are my projects, here's all the work that I've done in the past week. Oh, okay, there's actually plenty that I've accomplished. But maybe, for example, I find, oh, you haven't set any pitches. Maybe that's why you feel like you haven't done enough. Okay, so this is an opportunity for me to start sending pitches again, start ramping up my pitch game. It doesn't mean I'm failing. It just means, okay, here's what I need to do next. Here's my opportunity. Here's the action I need to take to keep moving forward.
I love that. Yeah, evaluating yourself objectively as well, not saying I did this and I didn't do this and I'm terrible, but saying, oh, here's what I did. And again, to your point, finding opportunities, here's an opportunity to improve my results. Love it. What's point number 2?
Point number 2, change your language. We kind of, I feel like, started hinting at some of this in this last point of the can'ts and don'ts and won'ts and couldn'ts and shouldn'ts and wouldn'ts. Anytime the negative version of whatever it is starts to crop up, and I feel like the can'ts, don'ts, wouldn'ts, couldn'ts, shouldn'ts are always ding, 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 should be a red flash bulb for your brain. Start training your brain to see those words like come up in your brain and, a fake flashy light bulb, I guess, go off in your brain that these are not words you want in your vocabulary, right?
Yeah. I mean, I can't it puts up a brick wall. It says that it is impossible for me to do this. So be really careful where you use it, because it's very, very rare that you truly can't do something. It's the vast majority of the time you can, it's just you haven't found the way yet, or you just haven't done it yet. So be very careful of that anything that limits your possibilities or makes you feel bad about yourself, or if you haven't yet, now is a good time to start evaluating what you actually say to yourself on a regular basis. We are constantly talking to ourselves, and very few people take the time to stop and listen to what that voice is saying. A lot of what that voice is saying is very negative, and it's important to start to notice that so that you can start to change it. And things that I can't pops up automatically. Start noticing that again so that you can change it. So when I can't land my first client. Okay, well, you can say that to yourself. Standing outside of that, I can say objectively, of course you can. Of course you can. Everyone can land their first client. You just haven't done it yet. Of course you can. You may feel that way, but again, that's your emotions affecting your language. And now that you have identified the emotions from the first tip, now you start to change up your language and change it to be a little bit more opportunity oriented. So instead of just, I can't find clients, start with at least, I haven't yet found my first client, right? Still true, but so much more empowering than I can't. And then
Well, and not
two,
an end of the road, right? It's
exactly.
not final. If I haven't yet, there's okay, now the road's still open versus I can't. It's done.
Mm-hmm.
End of story.
Yes, no brick wall. And then two, start asking yourself, how can I? Instead of I can't, I haven't yet, how can I? And that's when you're going to start, because I can't, it's a brick wall. You can't take any further action because you said I can't. But when you start to open up the possibilities, then you start to challenge your brain to figure out ways to solve this challenge. And then you can keep moving forward.
And I think, that we mentioned the can't, shouldn't, wouldn't, couldn't. I think where it gets a little trickier is to start to notice the ways that it's still negative, but you're not using those kind of buzzwords, right? So that was an awful pitch that I just sent. Terrible, I guess would be a flash word. But still, nonetheless, that pitch real bad. So, okay, but you sent the pitch. So reframing that as, hey, I sent this pitch out. I think I can do better. And so I'm going to do better next time. And here's what I'm going to rework for my next pitch. Here's what I've learned on this last one that I didn't think, feel very good about. Or this client must see right through me. Okay, how about reframing it as this client is super smart and maybe knows a lot about marketing. I have such an opportunity to learn from them and collaborate with them. And I have a lot to offer about copy. I'm the copy expert here. They're the expert in what they do, and I can learn a lot from them. But I also have a lot that they can learn from me. And so reframing it of feeling like, okay, just because someone else is smarter in the room, that's a good thing. That's something you should want.
Well, and actually, that's brings me to the next point, the concept of should. Should can be very positive in some ways and very useful. But when you spend all of your time going, oh, I didn't do this, I should be doing this, or I should be in a different place, I should be sending more pitches, I should have a better website, I should. When you start seeing that come up a lot, it's not, and I think sometimes people think, well, I should is telling me what I should be doing instead, so that must be useful. But when instead, when you're just focusing on what you should be doing and you're making a list of all of the shoulds, you're also making a list of all the things that you're not doing, and you're telling yourself you're falling behind. So anytime a should comes up, instead of keeping that, well, I should be doing this and I'm not, so I'm awful. Because that's the end of the sentence, right? I should be doing this and I'm not, I'm the worst. Instead of whenever a should comes up, I should be doing this. Okay, so how can I be doing this? I should be sending more pitches. Okay, so you're not. So how can you build it into your schedule to send more pitches? Well, I should be getting better feedback from my clients. Okay, well, first of all, evaluate what that feedback actually is. But then, okay, how can I structure my projects to get better feedback from my clients? Is there something in the input calls? Are you not getting enough information in the input calls to deliver the best possible work? Although I do want to remind you guys, just as an aside, that there will always be feedback from your clients. They have things in their head that you can't possibly know. So rounds of feedback, you should expect at least a couple of rounds of feedback. Yeah. So watch out the shoulds.
And I like to switch it to sometimes to, do I need to do this? I should update my website, but do I need to? Absolutely not. It's not the number one thing that's going to move my business forward. I don't need to now. So let me reframe that of like, yes, there are other websites that are far more beautiful than mine, but that doesn't matter for me in my business right now. So let me put that aside and stop feeling like I'm less of a copywriter than someone else who has a beautiful website. And no, I'm confident in my skills, and this is what's going to help my business right now. And that's going to be different for every business. It's not going to be the same thing for where people are in their careers and just their networks and everything like that. It might be different things that are going to really help you, that you need to do to move your business forward.
Yeah. Switching that should to could even helps a
Mm-hmm.
little bit. Like, I
Yeah.
should be updating my website. I could be updating my
Could.
website. And then evaluating, okay, well, what will it get me, and what will
Yeah.
it, and what's the time trade-off? What's all of that? I should be
Yeah.
pitching more. I could be pitching more. Why aren't I? Where is there an opportunity? How can I build it into my schedule? Do I want to be pitching more? Like, you could be pitching more, but maybe the pitching amount that you're doing is actually the right amount
Just
for the
fine.
hours that
Yeah.
you want to work. So just switching up your language, even within just a sentence, can help your brain to approach something from a totally different angle.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
I love that. There's no one size fits all. I feel like that's somewhere where that comes from of like, well, this is the path, right? And
Mm-hmm.
you need to adjust it to what works for you.
Mm-hmm.
So last
Point
thing,
three.
which kind of this leads nicely into it, is learning from your peers instead of comparing yourself to them,
Mm-hmm.
which can be real hard to do. We're just hinting at it with the website. I think that's for me a very easy visual way to say like, oh, okay, like this just looks more professional, and so therefore I don't go down these rabbit holes, thankfully, but I could very easily see that happening of they're more of a professional than I am, but to be a professional copywriter my site needs to look like theirs. Whoa, 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 whoa. Let's rein that back in. Why do I feel that way? Is there something on this website that I can learn from? Is there something, some sort of content on their website that I don't have on mine that, oh, that this would actually be really valuable to my clients? Or uh, would the imagery, having a more beautifully designed website, would that actually help me? Do I actually need that? Or am I just drawn to that aesthetically and it's not actually something that's going to benefit me? So really taking the feeling, why do I feel when I look at this the way I feel? And let me separate the feelings from what I can actually gain from looking at this.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. That comparison is comparison is the thief of joy. I forget exactly
Mm.
who said it, but someone very, very smart. And we see it a lot, not a lot, but sometimes in the student Facebook group, student only Facebook group, people post, gosh, I see so many other people landing clients like crazy, and I haven't landed my first clients yet. And everyone is on a different, I resist using this word because it just reminds me of watching The Bachelor, but everybody is on a different journey. But it's true. It is
It's true.
absolutely, and it's a journey from that first moment when you learned about what copywriting is all the way along to the point where you are consistently hitting your income goals and exceeding them. It's a I was going to say it's a long journey. There's just a lot of steps on the journey. For some people, it's going to go a little bit faster. And for some people, it's going to it's going to take a little bit longer because there's so many different factors. And it's going to
Mm-hmm.
look different for everyone. But you can't compare, if you're just getting started, you can't compare yourself to other people who have a ton of experience. In our Facebook group, we have people who have been working as copywriters now for a couple of years. And we have people who have started literally that day. If we have people constantly joining and learning and growing and sharing their wins and sharing their challenges, and that's another interesting thing too, right? Is we always compare ourselves. We have no problem comparing ourselves to people who are doing better, quote unquote better, but
Mm-hmm.
people are also sharing their challenges, and people are also sharing but we don't do this. Not that this would be a good thing to do, but it's not like we're constantly going, oh, well, I'm so much better than this other person. Comparison is almost always, in fact, likely, unless you're a sociopath, when you see someone who's struggling, you're going to hop in and give them
Help.
support, exactly, and say, you can do this, which we don't
Mm-hmm.
generally do for ourselves. Instead, we use
Mm-hmm.
comparison to put ourselves down.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, it can be helpful to say, oh, someone hits a 5K month, or let's use land first client. That's a better example, because everyone's like, well, how did you land your first client? How did you land your first client? And I take what you can from that. But I would encourage people, someone might say, well, I just happened to tell so-and-so, and, I told a friend and they had a project and that's how I got mine. Or I posted in a Facebook group, or I did this or I did that. And there's so many ways that people land their first client. Maybe it is through a pitch. Maybe it's through, so many ways. But So take all of that and see, okay, they told friends. Let me go tell my friends and family and put that out into the
Mm-hmm.
world. Let me also start sending, crafting my pitches and getting feedback on them. And you have all the steps. So taking from these experiences the actions that you can take and not necessarily feeling like, well, I don't know anyone, or friends and family aren't going to want me to write copy for them, or that's not going to work, or I don't want to tell friends and family yet, or whatever it is. But taking the actions that you can take from these things and learning from that, there's not necessarily much to learn from just saying, well, this person hit 5K and this person hit 5K, and there's no way to do the exact thing that they did.
Mm-hmm.
There is the way to do the exact thing that they did in the sense of pitching and telling people, and posting in Facebook. They're the actions that we tell you to take that everyone can take, but the path to get to the end result might just look a little bit different for everyone.
Mm-hmm.
You always hear about the wins. You don't hear necessarily about the struggles. I think it's nice in our group that people do share
Mm-hmm.
some of the path to get there, but sometimes when you see the win, you don't always see the whole backstory.
Mm-hmm.
So
And
remembering that it's not easy. I mean,
exactly. Even if it's not a struggle, they just had to take steps to get there. There were action steps that they did, and they had to push out of their comfort zone, and they had to actually sit down and do the work and get there. Yeah, if even if you can't necessarily learn from them, you can take people who are doing something that you want to do as inspiration versus proof that you'll never get there. What it should be is proof that it can be done. And especially when you go to like our testimonials page on the website, or if you're a student and you're in the group and seeing seeing how people are succeeding, what that should do when you see so many people succeeding, what that should do is prove to you again and again and again that it is possible. And not only is it possible, but it's possible for a variety of different kinds of people of all different ages, people of all different races, people of all different backgrounds, people of all different genders, all kinds of different people. And so instead of going, well, they've done it, I'm never going to, it should provide you with inspiration of just how possible it is. And the thing is that it's not only is it possible, but you have all of the steps. If you're part of our program, you have all of the steps. We've given you all the steps. You have all of the support. Now it's on you to take those actions, to take those steps. And yes, reach out on days when you're feeling a little bit lower, or you are doubting yourself, or that kind of thing. But also take what we put in this episode to heart and start practicing these techniques so that the imposter syndrome doesn't come up as much. Because when you do in fact practice these, and you get used to stopping your brain from saying can't, and you get used to not confusing your emotional reaction with the actual facts of it, when you get used to doing that and you do it more regularly, that imposter syndrome doesn't kick up. And it also doesn't just solve imposter syndrome, but it helps with all kinds of other anxieties and challenges as you grow into your next level as a professional. And also too, when you learn to start doing these in this capacity, you learn to start doing them in all areas of your life. It's not just you're going to stop saying can't, or you're not going to stop your brain from saying can't just when it comes to copywriting. It's going to spill over into the other areas of your life. And the same thing with separating emotions from facts, and the same thing with seeing what is possible out there based on what other people are doing, and not assuming that that means you can't do it, but assuming that it means you could do it if you want to.
Mm-hmm. And with a little bit of time, I think my mind went for some reason, you're saying all of this, to like driving a manual car. I couldn't drive a manual car. I knew I could, and I learned, and now I can.
Mm-hmm.
Same with changing a tire. I can't change a flat tire. Now I can.
Mm-hmm.
Changing oil, same thing. I didn't know how to do it,
Mm-hmm.
but I learned how to do it,
Mm-hmm.
and now I can do it.
Yeah.
So,
well, that's
literally, there's so many things.
That's right. I can't change a flat tire. Well, okay. At that moment, you were unable to do it, but you
Right.
certainly
But I
could learn
knew I
to do it.
could.
Exactly.
Yeah, and I did. Yeah,
And that's true
exactly.
with
So,
just about everything in this world. If it's
mhm.
possible for someone, it's possible for you. Now, there may be some things that will be very difficult to learn to do. And there may be some things that you just don't want to put. Like, I always think about Roger Bannister hitting that 4-minute mile. And then scientists thought it was impossible before he did it. And then as soon as he did it, a bunch of other people did. And I will think about it some mornings when I'm on the treadmill going nowhere near a 4-minute mile pace. But I always think, you know,
my 10-minute mile looks real sad.
Exactly. But it's kind of amazing to think like, this is possible. Yeah. It's not something that I am at all interested in learning how to do, but it's possible. And there's everything, there's so many things out there that, and it would encourage you to think about this in not just in terms of copywriting, but just in general. If someone is able to do it, it is possible for you to do it. And again, you may not want to put in the effort to do it. It may not matter to you enough to do it, but especially when it comes to something like copywriting, it is not only, it's not just Roger Bannister and, you know, a handful of other runners, probably more since the 70s, but it's a lot of people. And basically, as we've talked about in the other episode about failure, which maybe we should link to in the the only way you fail is by stopping, by giving up. If this is something that you want to have the flexibility to control your career, to do something fulfilling, to make a good living, you can do it. And this imposter syndrome, it's coming up for you because you care about it. You wouldn't feel this imposter syndrome if you didn't care, right? You care about what people think and you care about doing well. And that's why it's coming up. And in that sense, it's good because it's important that you care. That's great. If you care, you do good work and you want to be good at this. So when you set that imposter syndrome aside, when you stop letting your brain do that to you, your success will come so much faster because you'll be able to focus on doing what really matters instead of holding yourself back and making yourself feel bad for making progress on something that really matters to you. Okay, so that's what we have for you today. I hope it was helpful if you have been feeling that imposter syndrome, or even if you've just been noticing negativity come up, any of that. I mean, we all know resistance is going to come up, and it comes up in all kinds of different ways. So if one of the manifestations happens to be an imposter syndrome, definitely go back, take notes on this episode, and make a commitment to practicing. And then, by the way, share with us how it's going if you are doing that practice. Comment on Instagram, comment on Facebook, shoot us an email, let us know if you're putting this into practice and how it's working for you. And of course, then we will catch you guys in the next episode. Bye, everybody.
Thanks for watching. Make sure you don't miss any tips, tools, or tactics for copywriters by clicking subscribe right now. And of course, you can always find us over at filthyrichriter.com. We'll see you next time.